This generation has brought us so many great games, and looking at PlayStation alone, it's safe to say that their single player offerings as of lately have never been better than what they are right now. While this generation is seeing its final moments as the dawn of the next generation is just ahead, was this generation terrible for multiplayer games though? How's it going, everyone? It is Online here. Welcome back to another video course as always. Yeah, multiplayer games, man, that's something that kinda leaves a sour taste whenever I think about that as of lately, because quite frankly, just you don't see them as they were as of last gen in my opinion now. Yeah, this is gonna be kind of like maybe even a long video because I do have quite a bit of thoughts about this kind of topic at hand. This video topic actually came to me because of Broken Games HD's video. Basically a few weeks ago, he talked about how this generation has been the, worst generation in terms of multiplayer games, which I actually agree with quite a bit of his points, and I want to kind of bring up some of my own points as well about this generation for multiplayer games. And yeah, so yeah, I'll leave a link to his video course in the description below. It was a really good video and he talked about it all there. PS4, Xbox One, I'm gonna count those two consoles because obviously Nintendo does what Nintendo does. They do their own kind of thing. I'd argue the Switch isn't even in a part of this generation. It really isn't. So yeah, PS4 and Xbox One, that's what we're talking about. How are their multiplayer games this generation? So I guess it started off with like 2014, 2013, those early years of the cycle. I want to say it was quite different, and I actually kind of liked some of the early PS4 offerings in terms of the multiplayer there. Like I actually played quite a bit of Battlefield 4 and Watch Dogs. Those are some pretty underrated multiplayers. Maybe not Battlefield 4 because that was kind of like the flagship title that the console kind of shipped with. You either played that or Call of Duty Ghosts in terms of like the major AAA multiplayer games out there, and then of course that changed as the years went on for the cycle. Yeah, I'd say that starting around maybe the middle of the generation, maybe the early, definitely going towards this half, of the generation, the latter half, it seems like every game wants to be your damn best friend, which is so annoying. You see every single game that comes out now has so many big progression paths, and while I think progression is key to a lot of multiplayer games, last generation you saw a lot of core gameplay focused multiplayer games that you wanted to play because of the gameplay alone, and nowadays it seems like every single multiplayer game that comes out frankly wants you to spend their whole life in it. You look at Destiny 1 and 2 and the Division 1 and 2 that came out these past few years, and yeah, every single game now has to kind of follow suit in terms of that direction. You see Ubisoft adding raids to all their multiplayer games now, or just anything that strictly could have it. It seems like every game needs to be your best friend because that's how they see the market. Like every game wants you to live in their kind of universe, spend time in there, spend money, and just ultimately just not respect your time really at all. They want you to live in their games, and which quite frankly is not something how I like to play my games. How I've always kind of seen myself in terms of how I enjoyed playing games is I like to beat games and move on from them, and then come back to certain single player games or certain multiplayer games that have really good gameplay and really good reasons to come back to them. Last generation I played a lot of Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 multiplayers. Arguably those are really underrated multiplayers, but those weren't even the flagship games that had big multiplayer modes. Last generation you saw Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 on the rise, COD 4 even in the beginning of the generation. Yeah, just so many great multiplayer games that were just not even expecting you to keep coming back in different progression paths, but just quite frankly they were fun to play with friends and talk shit and ultimately just have a fun time. And yeah, they were kind of simple in that days, and nowadays it seems like every single damn game wants to be your best friend and you to live in their games, which frankly kind of pulls me away from certain games if I'm being honest, and kind of leaves a sour taste at it. It's like you can only do multiplayer if you're gonna literally make a game that's only focused on multiplayer. You can't do both, which is something we saw a lot last gen. There was a lot of games where they kind of slapped the multiplayer mode on, and that's kind of brings me into my next topic. Yeah, a lot of games nowadays, they don't really have multiplayer modes. They usually try to do either single player or multiplayer. Yeah, Sony didn't really do much multiplayer this generation. You look at last gen and they had a bunch of Killzone games that had multiplayer, the Little Planet games. I mean, yeah, you could say that's because, Medium Alcohol hasn't even put out a game until just now, but yeah, we had a lot of games like Killzone, Uncharted. A lot of those games had multiplayer modes slapped into them, and it seemed like a more dynamic kind of Sony. Sony right now, it seems like they're known as being the big single player AAA 12-hour kind of game. Well, I guess now it's actually the 20-hour mark actually, but yeah, it's it always seems like you're either with multiplayer or you're not. You're a single player game or you're a multiplayer game. Hell, there's been that new kind of I wouldn't want to say a fake movement, but it seems like at a certain part of this generation and even now, it seems like bad multiplayer games have kind of created some kind of message that single player games aren't selling well, which is to me the complete opposite. And right now it seems like, yeah, if you're creating a single player game, you're treating to the niche people, which makes no sense at all. And that it's either you're with single player or you're not with single player, either multiplayer or not, which is just completely weird to me, and you can't do both, which I mean, I can see the reasons why. Sony in particular, I can maybe give them a pass because, yeah, they've seen success of their single-player games and they want to continue what's obviously making it successful. But even in cases like Days Gone, I feel like could have used some multiplayer. I mean, granted, Days Gone had issues on its own for other reasons, but yeah, there's been too many opportunities that I feel like they didn't really take advantage of in terms of adding a multiplayer mode. Some of my favorite games from them this generation that could have had a multiplayer mode. Granted, I'm not asking you to slap a multiplayer mode in anything. Look at Tomb Raider. That multiplayer was garbage, but hell, it's also doing it right. Like Tomb Raider's multiplayer that was slapped on the 2013 reboot, yeah, it didn't need to be there, but also look at the Uncharted series, those multiplayers didn't need to be there. And look at any kind of game that has a multiplayer mode. You could argue that any kind of game doesn't need multiplayer. And yeah, like, you do it right, and yeah, exactly. A bad multiplayer mode doesn't mean that it's not supposed to have a multiplayer mode, it just means it was developed badly, and has issues in its own right. So this generation overall has seen quite a lot of, at least dry periods for me, where I've kind of just felt bored of gaming in terms of multiplayer. Like I feel like I've had months where I don't know what to play with my friends because, quite frankly, we're just kind of not really interested in a lot of the games that are coming out multiplayer wise, and you always end up like buying Call of Duty every year, and I believe it's solely because you want to have like you have hope that it's going to actually be a good multiplayer game. I mean, yeah, it's like the cycle every single year that people end up buying Call of Duty anyway when they say they're not going to, because quite frankly, around the fall time, you get bored because what else there is really there to be out there played. Crash Team Racing, thank God, has had a pretty cool multiplayer, experience online, and yeah, I haven't played too much of it, but it has definitely been a breath of fresh air this summer to be able to actually have a game to be able to, look forward to playing. And yeah, I totally get that it's dangerous to go single player and multiplayer and you want to really dedicate your resources to doing one, but at the same time, I feel like it can be done, and honestly, and you see in certain games that come out this generation that do both well, it can still be done in each kind of generations. And yeah, it's just kind of sad to see that those kind of games that did single player and multiplayer have kind of faded away. It's now you're either like a live service game or you're like a big AAA single player game. So yeah, I guess also on the rise of this generation has definitely been asymmetrical multiplayer experiences as well as battle royales. It seems like a lot of games that come out nowadays are like trying to do unique stuff in multiplayer. Again, as I said, like a lot of games nowadays that come out, you need to do something different, or you need to like really dedicate your kind of game to like one specific side of the equation in order for it to sell well. Like, I don't know, I feel like there's been a lot more different party games like Dead by Daylight and stuff, and don't get me wrong, I like my Dead by Daylights and those kind of games, but it feels like there's like an overabundance of like different kind of multiplayer games. Like last generation we had a lot of, I guess, the same kind of multiplayer games in terms of like shooters, but it also felt like, it feels weird saying this, but it just felt like more streamlined and it felt like more natural. It feels like every single game, it's kind of off-putting in a way to have all these different genres, and it's a good thing, but I don't know. There are different things. I do like my asymmetrical games, but it just feels like we have a lack of like just good multiplayer games in general. My relationship with battle royale games this generation, honestly, a lot of them I just touch them and I put down. I can't really get addicted to battle royale games. I have played a bit of Fortnite in the past, but that's honestly been to like due to the dry periods and playing with friends that I know locally and stuff that like playing Fortnite, because quite frankly that's been like the big blow up game this generation. Yeah, it's just been interesting. Like, I kind of just missed the old days of, playing multiplayer, being excited to hop on some like Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, Max Payne. Hell, Max Payne 3 had a fun multiplayer mode. Talk about like multiplayer that gets slapped on but done right, man. I miss that, I'm not gonna lie. I just feel like a lot of games nowadays either do single player, co-op, or dedicate fully to like a live service kind of game, which is kind of sad. And nowadays you just don't really see that kind of multiplayer environment as we did back in the day, and it's just kind of sad to see. Just like, as I said, every damn game wants to be your best friend. I feel like Sony could have done a lot more in terms of their, first party lineup, in terms of adding maybe, multiplayer modes. I'm not saying obviously slap it into every single game like God of War or anything, but there's definitely been some, opportunities there. Yeah, the bad multiplayer games have spread like kind of like a fake message that, oh, if you're not doing a multiplayer game, you gotta do a single player game. And yeah, even look at the bad apples, like the loot boxes. Sure, I mean, loot boxes are a different problem entirely that were like associated with multiplayer, but just in general, like Battlefront and everything, just leave a poor taste in your mouth whenever you think of those kind of multiplayers, and they kind of led a bad taste in general in terms of multiplayer. And look at EA now, like everyone wanted EA to do single player games, which is why like a lot of people were like excited for like a Way Out and stuff. But honestly, I'm kind of feeling the opposite now in the generation, where I've had a lot of great single player games, but like too many single player games I've loved, but not too many multiplayer games I've loved this generation. So it feels quite the opposite in a way. So yeah, I don't know, I feel like I'm on the opposite side of this generation in a way, where a lot of people want single player games. I really do like single player games. That's where I'd say I'd enjoy most of my experiences at the moment, and just in general what got me into gaming. But at the same time, I feel like we're kind of like like straying towards one side, at least in my personal opinion, what I've enjoyed this generation, in that we haven't really gotten some good multiplayer games, and instead of asking for good single player games over, you know, multiplayer games, we should ask for like good on both, honestly. Like, people act like you can't do both, and that you're either single player or you're multiplayer, or yeah. I don't know, it's kind of sad. Honestly, I'd be lying if I said that I'm not looking forward to Last of Us 2 multiplayer, because goddamn, I'm looking forward to that campaign a lot with Joe and Ellie, but I would be lying if I said I was not looking forward to part 2, because just Last of Us represents what I love so much about last generation's multiplayer. I mean, hell, look at Bluepoint Games, they didn't port over the Nathan Drake Collections multiplayer that we found in Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3, but somehow Naughty Dog ported over the, you know, remastered the multiplayer for Last of Us 1. It just made no sense. They said that they were splitting the player base, but look at that, now the servers Uncharted 2 and Uncharted 3 are dying, and then they're just being left for dead on the old console, and it just sucks. Like, just so many poor decisions like that. Just ultimately all this combines to just a poor generation in terms of multiplayer, and hopefully we see that changing going forward. I know Sony's talked in the past, at least the past couple of months, talking about how they want to push a little bit more in the multiplayer genre, that they haven't really done much this, you know, generation, which props to them, because quite frankly that's probably not the best thing you could say, considering it seems like their whole audience right now only wants single player right now. So hopefully we can get some more experiences like that. Hell, there's a reason why everyone wants SOCOM to come back. It's because people want something to play, they want something that they're excited to play, and quite frankly it just seems like every single damn year that comes by, at least half the year, it's always like filled with like a dry period of not having really any interest in any multiplayer games, and just once you beat games then you're just left wondering what the next game you're gonna be able to play is. So hopefully that will be a little bit of a decrease going to next generation, because yeah, it's definitely been there this year. And yeah, I guess just leaving it off there, I've only really touched like pretty much the surface of this kind of conversation that could be had. Yeah, let me know in the comments down below whatever you guys thought about the multiplayer this generation. I know I might be in the minority because I've seen a lot of people really love multiplayer this generation in terms of like games they found in love with, like PUBG and stuff, but honestly, nothing's really stuck with me this generation that I can really say has stuck. That at least at the current moment that I've been playing a lot. Like honestly, I can't really think of a game I've mained multiplayer wise in ages. Like it's always a game I play for a couple weeks or a couple days and then I fall off. So let me know if you guys had similar experiences like that. Definitely something that's kind of interesting, and hopefully we see change going into next generation. You know, I've been talking a lot about PlayStation, but Xbox has done a decent job. Xbox has a different issue entirely. Their multiplayer games aren't generally good. I'm going to be completely honest. Like State of Decay 2, I don't really have an interest in playing. You know, yeah, maybe Sea of Thieves is one that I've heard is really good with friends. I've played it a bit like in the past, but even that I've kind of dropped off on PC. Yeah, just list it all in the comments down below. Just, yeah, have it all out there, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video. Looking forward to reading all your comments, and yeah, make sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to make sure you're notified of all my future videos to come, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care, everyone.